Hello and welcome to this video. My name is David Thorne. This is now the second part of my JavaScript Basics for absolute beginners, where we talk about the fundamental concepts of JavaScript. Now, if you haven't watched the first video, I'm going to leave a link in the description, or it'll be up top right now, where you can go back to see the first 10 examples. If not, don't worry about it. You'll be able to catch up pretty quickly throughout these next 10 videos. With that said, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, ask any questions. Okay, let's get started. So let's now move on to example 11. And now we have string concatenation, and we've got first name, last name, so two variables here, and one has David and one has Thorne. String literals once again. And we're using our console.log and now we've got this plus sign, and what this is doing is now concatenating. So it's not adding as such the values together, right? It's going on the left hand side because of this first character, right? If this first character was a number and there was a number here, so let's say that there was like a 2 and a 1 here, and added it together, you might get something different, and we'll just see what it actually does. And you get 2 David, 1 Thorne, right? But if we remove this plus here, let's see what it gives us now. Okay, but if we now remove the spaces, sometimes you can get some funny results, all right? But in this sense, it's not doing it. But it really matters sometimes how the plus sign wants to work, all right? But if you want to just concatenate strings together, then this is what you can. This is what you can do. But if you've got to be careful about what you put in the variable, and let's just do like this and see what we get now. And we run this. You see here, okay, it's not doing it in this sense, but you can just skip over that. Right? It concatenates it together. Okay. So let's go on now to using template literals. I like this way better. If I know that I've got a string and I want to add variable information to it, right? But this part of it is dynamic, so this name could be dynamic, okay? Then I prefer to use these template literals instead because it's a lot cleaner, in my opinion. All right, and yeah. So what we're doing here is now we're doing these backticks, and when we get to the place that this is like a placeholder here, and it's going to say, hey, replace this here with the contents or the value of this one variable, and this could be a number, it could be all sorts of stuff in here, and then console.log is then going to output this one string. So this is all happening prior to log is called. So first of all, this string is going to be built and everything's going to be concatenated together, and then greeting is going to be called. And so if we debug this once again and have a look and move this down, you'll see that greeting is already hello, my name's David, even before this console log got called. All right, so this is all going to happen at runtime as you do it. This first name could be from an input field on a website or something like that, and then you're going to pump it into this one message. All right, but super simple, and you're going to use it a lot in the future too. So moving on to number 13. Okay, so now we have null versus undefined. And this is something really, as they say in the army, pin your ears back now, because it's kind of super important. You have undefined and null, all right? And they both have different values. So let's just run this. And you'll see that a uninitialized variable, right, has the value of undefined in the beginning. But null var is a declared variable, right? Because we've declared it here. We've given the assignment operator to say, hey, I'm going to give you a value right now. And what we're saying is you've got null value, which means you don't have any value whatsoever. However, you have been initialized, all right? And this is the difference, is uninitialized var hasn't been initialized. It knows that there is a variable there, but it doesn't actually have any value whatsoever. But null means it has no value, but it is initialized, all right? And they are different meanings. And this is something you got to understand, is that null is not equal to undefined, okay? So the next one we've got here is we have an array of integers here, or numbers, and we're then going to push push is then adding 4 to the end of the array. So it's not doing nothing more than this basically. And now we come to numbers here again. So we are going to overwrite the value of numbers, right, with a new array. And we're using this ... or decimal, period, whatever you want to call it. And what this is doing is it's taking the complete contents of this numbers and it's basically like expanding it. So it's kind of synonymous to, and it kind of is doing this exactly. It's doing this for you, all right? It's saying, I'm just going to expand everything in this array and we're going to make a new array from it. So by saying ... you are including all of the items in that one array, okay? And now then we're adding 5 onto the end of it. So we're kind of doing exactly what we just did here, but we're kind of doing it in one line instead, all right? Obviously, it would just be easier to put 5 on the end here because you don't need to have this, but it's an example, all right? Now, numbers, because it's an array, it has an additional couple of methods, all right? That these are high order functions, which means they're a function that take a function, okay? And it's going to iterate. It's going to, just like our for loop that we went through, it's going to go through every single item in the array, right? And it's going to give you this this item in the array, and it's then going to call this function. So it's going to go through the first item, and let's just do this with the debugger, all right? So we can see here that we have number 1, and this is this here, and when we then just output it, we get 1, all right? Now return value is 0, and this is 0, which is fine. And the next we now see number 2, all right? This is this number here, and we then get output here, and we get number 3, and so on. So let's now, for the sake of a little bit of clarity, let's put 10, 55, and 21, all right? And we'll run it again, just so you can see that 1, 2, 3 are not anything else. So the first number, because it's the first in the list, is then the index of 0, is then number 10. And then we come to the next one, we get number 55 and 21 after this as well. And we keep going. And the next one, we then get 4 because we added 4 to it. And we keep going again and we get then 5, and 5 is added to it as well. Okay. Now for each, you can see here that it has a value, index, and then array. So we can cut this out and put number back in here. And now we can say index, right? And we'll run this again. And now we're going to have some more information here. See, we're at index 0 is 10. And we run this again. And now we've got index 1 is 55. We run it again. And we get index 2 is then 21. So the third element is then the n elements, the nth element minus 1. All right, so we've got the third element minus 1 is equal to 2. And then we come to the next item is then the fourth element in the list. So minus 1 is then index 3. And then we get the next one is then the fifth element in the array. Minus 1 is the index of 4, and we get the value of 5 here. Okay, so this is how you can use a for each function. And then the final item in it as well that we can have when we run it is then the actual array itself. So you get the whole array at the end. It tells you what index you are, and here's the actual element in there as well. So you can check everything here, and you can say if index is equal to 0, right, then we're going to pump this out here, and let's get rid of this breakpoint, and let's run it again. And you can see here we just get 10. So we're only going to output if we get the number, or the index is equal to 0, and we then could just then access the array itself, which would be pointless because we've got it already, but we can do this again. And you can see here that we get 10, all right? And we could then do index plus 1, and that would then give us 55. So here's another way that you could do this yourself if you wanted to, all right? So moving on, next one. So we now have creating and using an object. So once again, we have the car object, all right? Is then identified then by the curly braces, and we put a semicolon on the end. And we have two properties, model and year. And model is then Corolla, and the year is 2020. And we've defined a variable up here, constant variable, because it's not going to change. The value of this constant cannot change. So the prop is then initialized, it's defined as prop and initialized as make, and this can't change anymore. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say car is this object, and we use the square braces, square braces to say we're going to access this one object, this one property here, and we are essentially creating this property as well. So we defined it in the beginning, and now we're extending it to have a property of make, and we are assigning that Toyota. So if we run the debugger, you can see that our car only has model and year currently, but when we move forward one step, now it has make, model and year, and we can access the make with the dot notation as well. Okay, so it's we used it as a variable name here, and now we're actually using it as a property name here instead, without using any square braces or any quotes and stuff. And now we can do the same thing. We can access the model property here using like the key of it with quotes and square braces. Okay, so this is how you can do it. And finally down here we can then access car prop, which is basically the same thing as this, because rather than a string, we're saying that it's going to be this prop is basically taking the value of this, and when it gets called, it's replacing it with this string here instead. So there's no magic there whatsoever. Moving on, 16. Okay, functions once again. And now we've got a greet function, and it's going to take two parameters. And we've seen console.log already, and we've seen all of this, so there's nothing new here. We're going to say hello name, and it's going to have, this is then going to be replaced with the value of name, and this is going to be replaced with the value of age, and it's going to say years old. And we're going to call greet here with David and 44. So let's run this, and no surprise, you get hello David, you are 44 years old. And if we then debug this once again, you can see here with it, we're in the local scope that we have here of greet, the name of the function, and we have age and name is then David. And this is something very interesting. You have a global this at the moment, and global this is basically meaning at this stage, right? And a Windows stage. You've got it. So JavaScript, everything in JavaScript is always at a window stage, and we're going to move on to it very, very slightly, very soon. But if we rerun this again, you'll see here we get exactly the same, but Windows not defined. But if we were in a browser, right, this would be defined, but because we're running it locally with Node, it's not going to get defined. Okay, but essentially this is at the global scope. All right, but it's something interesting for you to know. If you define a function inside of a browser, then it will be attached to the window document in itself. But once again, because we're running through Node here, it's not going to work like that. Okay, but I wanted to give you at least that insight to it. Number 17. So I'm not a big fan of alcohol, so I'll remove alcohol here, but we're going to say that if your age is more than or equal to 18, you are permitted to drink sparkling water. Otherwise, you have to drink juice. So yeah, this is called a ternary operator, right? And this is like a kind of an inline if-else statement. So first of all is the expression. This is a predicate. And if this is true, this is evaluated to true, then this, after the question mark, single question mark, this is going to be assigned to whatever it is after the left-hand side of it. So it's a way to be able to assign the right-hand side of something to the left-hand side of something in one line, right? It's trying to reduce the complexity of something, although sometimes it can also be adding to the complexity of it. So you need to be clear about when you want to use it. But if you don't want to use an if statement and you want to keep it as simple as possible, then a ternary statement is the way to go. Ternary operator, is a way to go. All right, so it has a predicate that's going to be true or false, and if it's true, then it's going to come here, and if it's false, it's going to come here. Okay, and then we're just going to output cold beverage here. So as you can see here, if we make it 14. That is age is then 14 is obviously not more than equal to 18, so they have to drink juice rather than sparkling or lovely sparkling water instead. And number 18. So now we're using switch statements. So this is kind of like an if-else statement, but in my opinion, if you've got more than two things, if you've got two outcomes, a ternary statement is worthwhile using. All right, if it's not got any complexity and it's literally just like strings and stuff, and you want it's simple. If it's simple, there's not complex stuff, and it doesn't really go over to more than one line, or it doesn't go out any further, then use a ternary operator. However, if it's just got two options, I would advise, and it has to go to multiple lines, I would advise using an if-else statement, right? However, if you're going to use an if-else statement, I would much prefer that you use a switch statement, all right? And if you would ever work with me and I saw else if, I hate else if, and I would always use a switch statement. Or there's an alternative in other programming languages rather than a switch statement that you could use, but I try never to write else if, and if anything, I would lint code to make sure else if is never used. So I'm a little bit brutal here. The grade that the variable here is A, because this can change. The grade is in the events, let's say, case that it's A and you got it, then console log, I've never been, and we need a break statement here, I just noticed I missed that out. I've never doubted you due to how hard you worked, right? And A deserves a good pat on the back. A minus, you should have tried harder. If you got an A and you didn't try hard enough and you got that minus, then you obviously went to bed too early, or you didn't put in enough hard work. And if you got a B, or you did really well already, keep at it, but next time less Netflix and more learning. And then you've got a C. Yeah, just remember there are 1,000 other people after the job who have this grade. Don't be average if you want to get the job. Be this person up here, because you always get the job when you have an A, all right? Because most people who have an A minus, they didn't put enough hard work in, but the people who get an A, they put all the hard work in. So don't be a C person, and definitely pack your bags and yeah, please leave. That's what you should get if you get anything else. It's basically you didn't try hard enough at all, and that was me when I was at school. So now let's work in with date objects. I hate using dates in JavaScript. It's the worst thing possible. It's the most imperative thing, but you sometimes have to find a way around of it. So I'm not going to spend too much time here because it's a few good libraries to be able to do this. But here we're starting a new date, and we're saying now. And as you can see here, it outputs this super long complex thing. You can do a lot with dates in JavaScript, but I'm just going to skip over this because you've got a whole bunch of different options that you can use. And this is about 100 different videos in itself just to go through all of what date can do. All right. So next, we now have the basic DOM manipulation, the document object model. And when you want to start using JavaScript with HTML, then you have to start understanding what the document object model is and how to manipulate it. I'm not going to go over what it is, but I'm just going to tell you that we say document, and then as I said earlier, you've got the window. You've got window and you've got document, you've got screen and so on. But the document contains everything that's within inside of the window that you're using, the browser window, right? Not where the URL screen is, just where all of the content that's been displayed on YouTube that you're seeing, the colors, that's the document, right? And inside of that is a body, but we can access the different parts of it by using their ID. We can also use query selectors and so on. But right now, one of the attributes of this div HTML element, we can access it directly by saying document get element by ID. And IDs are supposed to be unique as well, right? So whenever it finds the first ID, it's going to use that. So if you decide to copy and paste it 13 times, you're always going to get the first one back. And elements they have based upon what type of element it is, like an image or a div or a paragraph or a list item, etc., etc. They have all different properties. But in here, the inner text is everything that's going to be inside the middle, right? And we can get it and we can set it just by basically using the assignment here. So this is saying, hey, inner text, I want you to set that to hello JavaScript. And I could run this, but you're just going to have to trust me that when it runs, text is going to be in there. All right. So there we go. That's now the 20th example done. If you do have any questions or any comments, please feel free to put them in the comments section below. And please don't forget to give it a like or even a dislike, to leave me any feedback or whether you did or didn't like it. And by liking the video or giving some form of interaction to it, it does also help the YouTube algorithm to post this video or send this video out to other people, to recommend it to other people, so they can also watch the videos and maybe learn something from it. Okay, otherwise, the next 10 examples are going to be on the screen right now, so click away and I will see you in the next video. Thank you and goodbye.